So day one of the 2024 US Open wrapped up. Day two is underway. I'm super excited. And as you know, I made a prediction video and I filled out both the men's and the women's draw. And after the first round wraps up, I'm going to let you know how many I got right, how many I got wrong. But some of you guys were wondering, Nick, why do you have these sheets and why do you write it out by hand? Why not just print it out or digitally put the names in there? And I'm going to tell you why, because when I write it out, there's more meaning to the draw. So for example, if I'm going to make a selection for a match and I'm actually writing the name, I have to be 100% sure that this is the person that I want to pick to win this match. If I did it digitally, it would be easy to change my mind. So there's more at stake when I do it this way. I can tell you already that there were a lot of draw busters yesterday. Interestingly, more draw busters on the men's side than on the women's side. In Wimbledon, it was exactly the opposite. But I made one of the greatest calls in the history of tennis by picking Maya Joint over Laura Siegemund. This is one of the most legendary picks that I've ever made, and I'm very proud of it. A lot of people can't tell when I'm joking around because I have a more serious demeanor, and I also happen to be somewhat unfunny. So I generally try to keep my videos 100% humor free. But I can tell you that out of all the matches that I watched yesterday, one match stood out, not necessarily for the quality of it, but more for the significance of it for one player. And that's the Nakashima Rune match. And a couple years ago, I made a video where I put Alcaraz, Sinner, and Rune on the thumbnail, and I wrote the next big three ? And I stand behind that video because I do believe that Holger Rune has as much talent as Sinner and as Alcaraz. He reminds me actually a little bit of Alcaraz because he has the variety. Rune can hit drop shots. He likes to come to the net. He's an unbelievable athlete. And as far as firepower, I always had the feeling that Rune can hit the ball as hard as Alcaraz and as hard as Sinner. Back then, I thought that Rune actually hit the ball the hardest, but I do think now that Alcaraz and Sinner have improved and they hit the ball as hard as Rune does. So there's a tremendous amount of potential in Holger Rune. When he beat Djokovic at the Paris Indoor Masters, everybody thought that he was going to be the next big thing in tennis. But unfortunately, after having a pretty good season last year where he made the World Tour Finals, we can see a slip in his form this year, and currently he's ranked 15 in the world. So it's going to be very tough for him to make the year-end finals this year. And while he has had some pretty good results this year, for example, making the semifinals in Cincinnati a couple of weeks ago and losing 7-6 in the third to Tiafoe, there also have been some very questionable matches. For example, losing to Marozan in Miami 1-1, losing to Struff in Munich 2-0, not playing well against Djokovic in the fourth round at Wimbledon, and I'm going to add the Nakashima match from yesterday to the list of strange performances by Rune. Now, before I get into that, I do want to give credit to Nakashima, who is an incredible player. He has such a positive demeanor on the court. He reminds me a little bit of Sampras in that way. He's a very complete player, has a great backhand down the line. He serves extremely well, very solid, aggressive player who also can come to the net and finish the points off there. And he also happens to be a tremendous athlete. I think that now that we have 5 Americans in the top 20, I think we could have 6 Americans in the top 20. Nakashima is a top 20 caliber player or more. And in yesterday's match against Rune, Nakashima played extremely well. However, there were some signs of why Rune is struggling this year in yesterday's match. And I'm going to tell you what they were. So in the first set, Rune gets broken. He's down 5-2 and he's serving to stay in the set. And what you want to do when you are serving to stay in the set is win that service game. Even if you don't happen to break, at least you get to serve the very first game in the third set. And also, anytime you're winning points, winning games, you can shift the momentum into your favor. But what does Rune do in yesterday's match? He loses his service game to Love at 5-2, loses the first set 6-2. Then in his first service game in the second set, after Nakashima held in the first game, Rune again loses his service game to Love. So he loses 8 straight points on his serve. And Rune has a lot of potential on his serve. He serves extremely fast. He does have some suboptimal technical elements, somewhat similar to Alcaraz, and I'm going to dedicate an entire video on the Rune serve and actually the Rune forehand. So now, after losing these 8 straight points on his serve, he's down a set and a break, and he didn't tank in yesterday's match. Rune was fighting hard to win this match. But when you put yourself in that big of a hole and you got an opponent on the other side who's playing really well, this is going to be a tricky situation to get out of. So Rune ended up losing that second set 6-1, but he did play pretty well after losing his serve to Love. He was competitive in those games. And in the third set, Rune was trying hard. He did get broken, and then he was down 5-3 in the third, and he held a very tough game that went over deuce. And then actually when Nakashima was serving for the match at 5-4, Rune had Love 30. So he had a chance to get back into the match, which he didn't do. Nakashima ended up holding, played really well, and won the third set 6-4. Now, the one big weakness in Rune's game that I've been seeing over the last 2 years, but especially now, is shot selection. So Rune generally will either go too big or he actually will go too defensive. So he has a hard time finding that zone that sometimes Alcaraz has a hard time finding, which Alcaraz did find starting in Indian Wells this year, where you're hitting hard enough to be aggressive and to dominate the rallies without taking unnecessary risk. And at times, Rune just hits too hard, too low percentage from very disadvantageous positions in the court, and at times Rune just plays too defensive. On top of that, the biggest problem that I saw in yesterday's match, and this is not something that I necessarily seen in other matches, was that on at least 20 occasions, Rune would serve and then would miss the first ball after the serve into the net. Whether it was a forehand or a backhand, he was missing a lot of balls into the net. So he had a tough time getting spin on the ball. He didn't move his feet. He was kind of holding his ground, and he had a very difficult time redirecting those balls back in play. So if I was Rune, I would practice that shot a lot because it is one of the biggest reasons why he lost to Nakashima. Now, I will say that it appears the court plays fast at the US Open this year, and Nakashima was returning well and very long and central. So that is a very tricky ball to play back. I will say that because a return that's central and goes deep, there's not many angles you can work with, and that is not an easy ball to play. However, a player of Rune's caliber shouldn't have made as many mistakes as he did yesterday off a ball like that. So I think the potential for Rune is huge, but the danger lies in him settling in the zone between 10 and 20 in the world, where a lot of players get stuck at. I do feel like it would be a shame if he became a player that's stuck in that zone, because I feel like his potential is much higher. In my opinion, he can be a top 5 player if he shows more consistency, but also if he continues to improve his game. Because let's face it, Alcaraz and Sinner have made tremendous improvements in their game, and Rune has not. Now, the night session yesterday featured Sloane Stephens, and a lot of people misunderstand Sloane Stephens. They see her demeanor on the court and they think that she doesn't care about tennis and that she doesn't try. But I can tell you that yesterday's match against Burel was a nightmare for Sloane, because she was up 6-love, 4-1, 2 breaks. Ended up losing 3 games in a row. It was 4-all. Then she breaks, is serving for the match at 5-4, gets broken. She loses that set 7-5. Is then up 4-2 in the third, and then loses the third set 7-5 as well. So that is a match that is going to stay in Sloane's head for a while. That was a rough one. And look, Sloane's demeanor has always been like that, whether she's winning the US Open or whether she's losing in the first round. This is just how Sloane is on the court. It doesn't mean that she isn't trying, it's just the way she is. Whether she performs optimally when she's that way, I have no idea. But that is just her personality on the court. And I do believe that Sloane cared a lot yesterday. Playing on Arthur Ashe in a 9th session is a big thing, and she's getting a lot of heat on social media, undeservingly so. The second match in the 9th session was Djokovic, and there was a question mark how he was going to perform after not having played a match in a while. But Novak got a comfortable draw. I don't think Albot could have challenged him much, even if Novak wasn't at his absolute best. And Novak had a comfortable 3-set victory, and it's exactly what he needs. Please stop saying that the draws are rigged. They are not. I made a video during Wimbledon explaining that the 3rd and 4th seed and so on are drawn. There's no guarantee that the 3rd seed is going to end up on top or the bottom. It's the luck or the draw, and Djokovic has played well. He made the finals of Wimbledon, semifinals of the Australian Open. This is one of his worst years that he's ever had, despite winning the Olympics, and he's still ranked number 2 because of his good results. And when you're ranked number 2, yes, you can get some more comfortable draws in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and even 4th round than if you were ranked 8, 9, 10 in the world. So guys, I'm going to be covering the US Open. Make sure that you subscribe to both of my channels. Intuitive Tennis is my main channel where I feature longer videos, and Intuitive Tennis 24/7 is my other channel where I feature shorter videos. Not only shorts, but also landscape format videos. They're just generally a little bit shorter in length. So make sure you subscribe to both channels so you don't miss any future videos.